Hello there. Nice to meet you. How are you? Good, well then. After your hard day at work and other activities throughout the day, what if you went to bed and slept, and suddenly you awake and not as yourself, but the famous emperor Marcus Aurelius Antoninus Augustus, or Marcus Aurelius, in the year 180 AD. Confused and puzzled at first, but you are now a well-loved emperor who has the entire Roman Empire at his feet. Unfortunately, you are 58 years of age in a military camp. Or so we think. We'll get on to that later. The important thing is you're on your deathbed, contemplating who you will pick as your successor. Spoiler alert. Your son, Caesar Marcus Aurelius Commodus Antoninus Augustus, or Commodus for short. You didn't pick him exactly, but his succession was planned. Who turns out to be a maniac and ranked up there with some of the worst Roman emperors. His reign signified by the senatorial order who came to hate and fear him, although he may have remained popular with the army and the common people for much of his reign. That was almost definitely because of his many lavish shows, staging and taking part in spectacular gladiatorial combats and doing pretty much nothing else. Statues around the empire were set up portraying him as that of Hercules, and thus claimed to be the son of Jupiter, the supreme god of the Roman pantheon. In his games he slaughtered animals like lions and giraffes and gladiators who were given only blunt swords. It is of no surprise he was assassinated due to his actions as a brat as opposed to a Roman emperor. But why did Marcus Aurelius or you plan Commodus as your successor? Something Cassius Dio described as going from a kingdom of gold to one of iron and rust. The simple answer is that Commodus was what's known as born in the purple, which simply refers to him being the alive son of the Roman emperor. Previous to Commodus spanning 80 years, a Roman emperor hadn't had a son survive to assume power, the last being Titus, son of Vespasian. But he wasn't born during his father's rule like Commodus but before, although still took power after his father. Thus it is assumed Commodus aka now many you would become leader. However, if it were that easy we wouldn't have a video. You see, previous emperors adopted sons to who they believed would become good emperors. The precedent for this was set when Julius Caesar adopted Octavian, who went on to become Augustus, the first Roman emperor. Although this was because they had no sons and hence no choice. Succession was actually well known to be favored. But seeing as though Commodus was a woeful emperor, why didn't you in this case just pick someone else? Well, firstly, it doesn't really work like that. When you have a son, it's safe to assume any of the other leaders would have done the same, and did do the same previously. In addition, this wasn't actually the initial plan. During the Marcomannic Wars, yourself or Marcus Aurelius and Lucius, your adoptive brother, agreed to appoint your two sons, Commodus and Marcus Annius Verus, as two Caesars, Caesars meaning the official heir to the throne. And so presumably it was envisaged that Commodus would serve as junior co-emperor to Lucius Verus, your brother, and later, after the death of Lucius, Marcus Annius Verus would join his brother and rule alongside him. It would have been difficult if Lucius Verus had a child, but he didn't, and died alongside Marcus Verus, leaving just Commodus. So it's not really important. Even after this, it was rumored that Marcus asked Pompeianus, his senior general on the northern front, to become Caesar, presumably as an interim ruler while Commodus matured and gained experience. He denied not once or twice, but 3 times. But let's theorize that after all this you still didn't just pick your son Commodus. Well, having Commodus a potential contender for the throne around, if you had picked someone else, I think we would have known how that would have ended for Commodus. And you being a Stoic, a type of philosophy of which you found yourself obsessed with based on personal ethics, and even went on write your ideas down for it in a book called Meditations, I don't think you would have done this. Wink, wink. This is further pointed out in Michael Grant's The Antonines, which has a section on Commodus. First, he points out that, had Marcus Aurelius attempted to appoint someone other than his son, he would inevitably have had to draw from a small number of prominent Romans, which would inevitably have been contested by the other prominent Romans. In other words, attempting to designate anyone other than his son would probably have triggered a civil war after his death due to rival factions fighting over the throne. Therefore, not choosing your son was a difficult one. But Aurelius or your son being evil is actually theorized based on the fact that we don't actually know much about Marcus Aurelius's death. While it is commonly thought that it happened at Vindobona, no source actually tells us exactly where or how he died. Cassius Dio, a Roman historian, one of the best sources for Marcus's reign, says that he was quite sick for much of the German campaign, but also says that he heard a story that Marcus's doctor hastened his death in order to please Commodus. So now you're thinking while gladiator scenario of Commodus personally killing his father is still false. It's not quite as improbable as some may assume. Firstly, this is unlikely as the Marcus Aurelius. Or you actually was 60 years of age and dying from the plague. Like seriously, what was the point in killing him early? Secondly, Dio then mentions Aurelius / you gave Commodus guards at all times so this conspiracy would never have happened. That didn't work. I also personally believe he fabricated this after going through Commodus' reign compared to his father's. It was likely something he wanted to believe. To explain the drastic difference. More to the point, you not picking Commodus is assuming you actually could see into the future or see signs that Commodus was going to be a maniac. A source from relatively close to the time around 395 AD. Writing about the time of which this question is set. Historia Augusta. Points to there being signs of this. There it is. Point A. Subsection B. Commodus wanted to throw someone in the oven. That's interesting. Within this book there's also a theory that Commodus was not actually the son of Marcus Aurelius and instead an affair between Faustina and a gladiator. It even finds that you foresaw Commodus being evil and wished death upon him. This is most likely not true. Whilst he may have had a temper at a young age. Who doesn't? This book is ridiculed with elements of fiction embedded within its biographies. In the case of Commodus, it may well be embroidering upon what the author found in reasonably good contemporary sources. For me it is them attempting to answer why Commodus was such a horrible leader. But respecting you by removing your affiliation with him. By assuming he is not your child. I think we'll take this. Not really very useful. And yeah, there it goes. What is bizarre is Commodus, knowing he would likely become leader, was raised to become a leader. Especially after the deaths of his uncle and brother. Before your dying you actually gave your son Commodus the best tutors. Brought him onto the battlefield for the Marcomannic Wars in 172 AD. And on a tour of the eastern provinces in 176 AD. He was made the youngest consul in Roman history in 177 AD. And later that year elevated to co-emperor with his father. Co-emperor for 3 years before your death. Phew. You did do a lot for him. The saying you can lead a horse to water but you can't make it drink really is evident here. So how could you know or even suspect he would turn out to be what he was? Overall. Despite what it is made out to be. Marcus Aurelius. Or yourself. Did your best for Commodus. Raised him as any other leader would given the circumstances around his succession. With it not going to plan at all. And being your son you would have hoped he would continue to the family name in high esteem. And that's the reason you chose him. Why would you not have picked him? What happened next during his reign is a matter of a psychological mystery. It seems he could not cope with the power he had. Despite the theories of which seemed too far-fetched to be believed. It was something out of your hands that you couldn't have predicted. And so that is why you picked Commodus. It was realistically something no one saw coming. Whose actions after his father/your death were unprecedented. And frankly a mystery within antiquity. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Is it just a tragic turn or should Aurelius have not chosen Commodus?